Hello everyone, and welcome back to New Horizons. We are continuing our mission to get the Volcanus today. In the last episode we began with some bee additions in the form of the Pyrotheum bees, the Neon bee and the Krypton bees. And their combs are being automatically processed by, well, first of all the centrifuge, and some of them are also going through a new large processing factory here, which is converting the combs into various fluids, one of which being Krypton. We're at 2.7 million. Neon, we're at 500k, and Blazing Pyrotheum, which is the most important one, and we're only at 431,500, so we might have to add a few more bees this episode, we will see. Since the Blazing Pyrotheum is necessary to sustain the Volcanus, which is our primary objective today, it's probably not going to take it all episodes, so we're going to get to some other things today, some exciting progression steps, I think. But yeah, we have already completed the first part of this, which is to craft the Volcanus. If you saw the very end of last episode, then we requested 4 Volcanus machine controllers, which was a very, very expensive request for Applied Energistics, but we do have all the recipes encoded by now. So I think it took about an hour and a half, maybe just over an hour and a half to finish the recipe crafts, and the biggest bottleneck was definitely the circuit crafts and the assembling machines. It's definitely one thing I want to look at upgrading, although we're not quite able to just yet. As part of the craft, we also need some ZPM circuits, and while it was crafting, I did also make sure to hold one of those. So we got the quest for our very first ZPM circuit, which is over here in the IV chapter, the Quantum Processor Mainframe. This one right here, we're going to get a loot bag IV. You know what, we might as well just open this, just to see what we get. We have some spare fortune books. Let's just go for it. It's only the 1 2-dimensional transceivers. I mean, can't complain at that at all. Definitely cannot complain at that at all. Anyway, so we have our Volcanus controller, 4 of them. We're going to start with 4 today. We might end up adding some more, but we also do need casings, which I forgot about. And if I counted correctly, we're going to need 17 casing blocks. So let's go ahead and request these as well. Should have had these crafted, to be honest. It's going to take about half a stack of EV and HV circuits. But it shouldn't be too long overall. And in the meantime, we can go over the rest of the setup for the Volcanus, which I've actually already started to put together. I couldn't really help myself between episodes. I was just so excited to get this thing up and running. So yeah, the first thing I done was give ourselves some new channels. We're going to build it next to the existing blast furnaces. So I went ahead and linked a brand new P2P connection to give us 32 channels for the Volcanus. And I also requested some energy hatches. Well, the max we can craft at the moment is IV. So I requested 8 of those, since we're going to overclock this Volcanus to LUV. And since we can't put the LUV energy hatch, we can double up IV, since 4 amps of IV equals 1 amp of LUV. So we can put 2 IV energy hatches on each Volcanus setup. And similar to the original blast furnaces, we're going to wall share. So as for the configuration here, we're going to have maintenance hatches on the 4 corners. This is going to be a 5x5 structure. Energy hatches on the inside, just behind the maintenance hatch. And then we'll have output bus in the very center of the 5x5 structure. And then input hatches for fluid insertion for the recipe for blast furnaces. And then pyrotheum heat and vents behind that. And then the rest is going to be casings, and then up top, we're going to have our stocking input buses. So one of the cool things about Volcanus is we're actually a bit more flexible than we are with the regular vanilla blast furnaces here. Since on the vanilla blast furnaces, you cannot have any hatches or input buses on the top. It's reserved only for the muffler hatch, and I think the output hatch you can put on the top. But we don't really need an output hatch on the blast furnaces right now, so yeah. Unlike on the regular blast furnaces, we can put the inserts on the top, so that frees up a lot more space underneath. So yeah, the Volcanus, as I understand it, will run any recipe a regular blast furnace can run, but as we saw last episode, it will give us the ability to run recipes in parallel, and also give us an energy discount and speed increase. But the cost to that is, of course, the Blazing Pyrotheum, so we'll see if we have enough. We might have to add some more bees, but let's just try to get this functional first. So one of the other things we crafted last episode was the HSS coil blocks, and those those finished before the controllers, actually. Those weren't too bad to craft, so let's go ahead and fill in our coils here. Oh, I think these ones... Yeah, the middle takes coils as well. It's just the very center of the multi-block should be hollow. And the rest will fill in just like this. And I was short. Okay, well, I'm sure you guys mentioned that in the comments, no doubt. There's no... I haven't read the comments yet, well, how many are we short? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coils short. Oh, and we actually do have the HSS spare. I guess that's because we have the recipe encoded for more than we need for a single coil. I think the recipe for the HSS is encoded at 64 at a time, so we must have some spare from when we cooked these ones here. So yeah, that really shouldn't take too long at all. Nice, so we got our quest, and let's fill in the casing blocks. The coils have also finished crafting as well. I did miscount the casings. Me and counting do not go well together. Yeah, we're still short 4 more casings, which are crafting right now. Those are going to go underneath. And then we also need the muffler hatches, which I think we can place here. They don't necessarily need to go in the middle of the structure. The middle is going to be reserved for the stocking input bus. Although this I know for sure we can move, so if it turns out we need to put the mufflers in the middle, then we can move it. But let's just try it out and see if it works here. Fill in the rest of the casings. And this should form the multi-block once we have the rest of the casings for underneath. So let's have a look at the wiring and the logic here. First of all, let's start with the power situation. So we're going to have to supply IV power. We are going to want, I think, at least 8x cable, since we're handling 2 amps for each energy insert. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 amps of IV. So I've already wired a power connection in here, and we have a high amp transformer taking 4 amps of LUV into 16 amps of IV. So we need to have at least 8x platinum cable. As you can see, this is capable of 16 amps. So we can plug in this cable to each energy hatch and then into the transformer. And that should give us 4 LUV blast furnaces, I believe. We are going to have to go around these, so we'll have to do... what's the best way to do this? Yeah, let's just go around. We'll just go around like this on each side. That's probably the best way for now. And then connect it up like this to the transformer. Like so. Oh, and I did accidentally have exactly the right amount of cable. So yeah, let's connect all this together. Okay, so that should be power. The next thing we're going to have to provide is the pyrotheum. So we'll have to request up some fluid export buses. And we're going to place at least 1 on the heating vents. And we'll request blazing pyrotheum. Also, I apologize for the keyboard sounds again. If you saw last episode, then you'll know what the deal with that is. Apparently, we're going to get a replacement. But it's still not here yet, so we're still on the clicky keys. Many of you long-time viewers pointed out that you haven't seen it for a while, or heard them for a while. And yeah, they're from the very, very old videos, this keyboard. The audio overall, in general, might sound a bit different this episode. I hope it's not worse, but let me know what you think about this, and we'll keep it moving forward. So yeah, we've got blazing pyrotheum in each one of these. We have to provide this with channels. So similar to the one over here, we're going to use wireless connectors. So all we should have to do is wireless connector here, and then connect that up over here. Oh, awesome! And it shows you on the wireless connector as well. Oh, that's so cool. So you can see this is orange. This is an orange connector. It's tiny little features like this that get me unreasonably excited for this game. So you might remember when we were doing ore processing, we had to stagger the wireless connectors to stop them from connecting to each other and messing up the channel separation that we have here. However, there is a way around it if you use an Applied Energistics color applicator, and you can fill this with matter balls. Yeah, so the matter condenser has a couple of different modes. One of them is to create matter balls. If you provide 512 junk items in here, it will give you some of these matter balls, and then those matter balls you can dye. So we're going to dye them orange. I do already have them, but yeah, just for demonstration purposes, you can put some orange paint or any of the colors that the cable can be in Applied Energistics, which I think is 16 different colors, right? And then you can take an ME chest, and inside the ME chest, instead of giving it a drive, you give it the color applicator. And then inside of here... Oh, does it really need channels? Or it might not need channels, but I think it needs power. You need to give it applied energistics power, so we can put it right here, I think. Then give it the applicator. Then inside of here, yeah, you can see here I have some orange, I have some lime, and I have some black paintballs. So we can put in the orange, get our color applicator back, and then we can paint the wireless connectors, and this will stop them from connecting to each other. So over here we have the lime subnet, which is our EBF subnet. So this one we want to be lime, and the other one we want to be orange, which is confirmed in the tooltip as well. It says orange underneath or above the 82 stuff, and this one has the lime tag on it. So we can wireless connect this one to the top side of the Volcanus. So that gives us an EBF subnet power connection, or sorry, channel connection up here, and that allows us to plug in the stocking input buses on the top side without having to wire up the side of the machine. And those extra 4 casings are now finished crafting, so this should form the multi-block if we've done everything correctly. Let's see if it's going to form here. Come on. Yes. Yes, perfect. Okay, let's do some maintenance. Running fine. Running fine. Running fine. And running fine. Perfect. So now the next steps is going to be to dye our cable. And then provide the fluid to the EBFs as well. One of those is going to be the krypton gas, which we're also making from bees. So we'll want a fluid export bus on the quadruple input hatch, which can support up to 4 different fluids being inserted here. So there's 2 ways you can do this here. You can either supply the fluid passively, which we're going to start with here. What are we looking for? Capacity cards. We might not have enough storage space though for fluids, since this only supports up to 4. And this is shared between 2 multi-blocks. These are the machine controllers up here. So this one is shared between these 2, and this one here is shared between these 2 Volcanus here. So we might not have enough space, but because of the flexibility offered by the Volcanus, and in that we have some free casings right here, we can also add some more input hatches here, I believe, and have more than 1, which means we can supply, as long as that still is a valid multi-block. Yes, that means we can supply up to 8 fluids for each. Potentially also 12 if we put another one right here. Oh, hold on here. This might get a bit messy because there's a few ingots which require multiple different fluids, or can handle multiple different fluids, which will not only influence the EU cost, but also the recipe time. So to give you an example... Okay, found a good example here. Osmium will take multiple different fluids, including no fluids. Circuit number 1 is usually 0 fluids, but this has the most recipe time and also the highest EU cost to smelt the dust into a hot ingot. And circuit 11 will allow us to use our krypton gas here, and that takes the recipe time down to 27.7 seconds from the default of 51. And we were previously using helium gas, and I think helium is going to be substituted with krypton. I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure every recipe that takes helium gas, of which there is 70 different recipes, I'm almost positive all of these can also run with krypton. Like HSSE, for example, we can also run this with krypton gas, right? Instead of helium, which is what we'll want to do. And krypton takes it to 69 seconds compared to helium's 125 seconds, so wherever possible we want to use krypton gas. But there's also some recipes like, for example, stainless steel dust, which can only benefit from oxygen gas, and that's normally the case with oxygen EBF recipes. Yeah, I think normally the oxygen ones can only use oxygen or nothing, like electrical steel, for example. I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to get away with just not supplying helium, and we'll just do krypton instead. Yeah, let's not try to overthink this too much, and we'll just see if it works, and we'll tackle any problems that arise. So we'll do krypton, we'll do oxygen gas, we will do hydrogen gas, which is another one of those EBF catalysts. What else do we have being supplied in these ones here? Hydrogen, helium, we don't want helium, nitrogen. I think this one is slightly different. No, this one is the same. The old EBFs, though, I think might have an extra fluid in there. Hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. And this one is also oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen. Okay, so yeah, I think for now, yeah, for each blast furnace, we're just going to have nitrogen, krypton, oxygen, and hydrogen. Like that. So that should fill the hatch here with all 4 fluids. And then for the item insertion, unlike this one, which we're using advanced stocking input buses to be able to pull everything from an already filtered subnet here. Remember, the lime one is the subnet. So when we want to request, for example, titanium, our main net is going to send the titanium dust into this interface, which is ingested into the EBF subnet. That's stored in the ME chest as a buffer, and then all of it is pulled into the blast furnace via the advanced stocking bus. However, I think we're going to be a bit more specific in which ingots we send through the Volcanus, mainly because I'm not sure we're going to have enough blazing pyrotheum, and we don't want it wasted on things like aluminium, which take just over a second, I think, in these blast furnaces here. We'll find out any second now. Yeah, 1.85 seconds for aluminium, and we're not going to benefit so much from energy discounts, so we want this running really long recipes. And these are also LUV as well, and these ones are only IV. These ones at HSSG are only EV. So, yeah, we want these to run our really, really long high-tier recipes. Things like, for example, all of the HSS dusts, so HSSG, HSSE, and HSSS. And these, by the way, will have to specify as circuit 11. I think for all of them. Oh, and there's a way we can copy this, right? We can use data sticks to copy the stocking input bus? Or am I wrong about that? Or was it the memory card? I always get these mixed up. I think it's the... Nope, memory card isn't working either. We're going to have to set them individually, I think, unless I'm missing something, which is possible. So what else do we want here? Rhodium plated palladium, and we'll just double check here. This can also be, yeah, this is also smelted with krypton. 281 seconds compared with 506.25 seconds. I think this was the example we saw last episode. And rhodium plated palladium is used in LUV. Iridium dust and osmiridium dust. Oh, we should check the quest book here. That's probably going to help us out. Oh yeah, Ruridit. Ruridit for sure. Yeah, look at this. Ruridit with helium is 759 seconds for 1 ingot of Ruridit. This is like going to be one of our biggest bottlenecks and is one of the biggest reasons why I picked up the Volcanus. Whereas with Krypton, we can use Krypton and it takes it down to 421.85. So it's still a very, very long time. Although this is HV, so we do get a slight overclock running these at LUV. But yes, definitely Ruridit dust. And I think we're going to also add in regular tungsten as well, which is smelted from carbon and tungsten trioxide dust. And the tungsten recipe also gives us CO2 gas, which is basically useless. We're just going to void it. So we're going to set void for fluids only inside the Volcanus. And we'll also enable batch mode here. And that should do multiple recipes at once where applicable, where we have the energy and the pyrotheum available. Let's also turn these things on. And we'll try out the first recipe. You might be wondering what's stopping some of these ingots being smelted in the original blast furnaces. And for some of them, it's going to be nothing stopping that. But for some of them, like Ruridit, I think is an LUV recipe. No, that was a bad example. Iridium? No. Yeah, osmiridium is an LUV recipe. So if that happens, it's not going to clog this blast furnace. It's just going to wait until this one is available. And that also reminds me, regular osmium dust we should also add here, which should also benefit from krypton. Yeah, 25.75 seconds at LUV. This is one of the things, if you'll remember, we had to overclock these blast furnaces for. Although I believe I took this back down to IV. Yeah, that was quite a few episodes ago by now. But that's how we got our very first osmium ingots. But we should now be able to smelt it in here. So you know what, let's go ahead and test this with the very first ingot being osmium. And we are actually missing a recipe for it. I think we'll just do this 16 at a time to start with, since osmium is quite a precious resource. And currently we're up to, wow, 1800 osmium plus 11,000 osmium nuggets, which is a decent chunk of ingots. So yeah, Actually, the bees have really paid off. The osmium bee. So this will go in our EBF subnet recipes. And if we request osmium, it should be sent to the Volcanus. And assuming we done everything correctly, we should see some smokestacks here appear. Yes. Yes. Amazing. Okay, it's only going to do one because I think this is an LUV recipe, so batch mode we don't get any benefit from. Because we're not providing more than 1 amp of LUV here with the 2 IV energy hatches. But we are successfully cooking osmium ingots. The one thing we have to watch out for now is our freezers going to keep up? Right now we only have 4 freezers and 2 are EV and 2 are IV. So I suspect we're going to have to add an extra freezer here pretty soon. And yeah, we're still using the 1 storage bus and input bus. So that might end up backing up into our main AE system, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. For now, let me filter in the rest of these Volcanus. Awesome, we got the stocking input buses filtered, and I think in that time we have finished the recipe for osmium, and we've got 16 osmium show up, which means that this is a great success. I don't think we've overlooked anything at this point. And as for pyrotheum, and we're down to 200k, but that's because we have a big internal buffer on the Volcanus. I think it's 128 buckets in each of these hatches, so yeah, it does give us a big buffer, but just for safety, we're going to add a fluid detector cover and a machine controller to the machine controllers. And what this will allow us to do is measure the amount of blazing pyrotheum that we have, and we should only turn on the Volcanus if we have above a certain quantity in here. So I think we're going to do this at 120,000 out of a maximum of 128,000. If I understand correctly, if you have a dust that started in the Volcanus, and you run out of blazing pyrotheum midway through the craft, as in when it's smelting, then I think the Volcanus will just instantly stop and void the dust. So we want to make sure we have at least a good buffer in here before we start to run the recipe. So I think we can do that just by adding 120 here, 120,000, and then redstone on, machine on. I might have this backwards, we might have to invert this. Let's test this out. I've ordered some more osmium, and yeah, I think it shouldn't be inverted, right? Because we have a sufficient quantity of blazing pyrotheum. Yeah, it shouldn't be inverted, and that also, it looks like we're just barely able to keep up with the fluid export bus. So again, just for safety, we're going to add an acceleration card here. Acceleration card on the fluid export bus, which is providing the blazing pyrotheum, just to make sure it's giving it to the hatch fast enough. That should be all the safety that we need. We could also read main fluid storage for blazing pyrotheum, but I think we're safe enough just to read the hatch on the blast furnaces. And it saves us doing any wireless shenanigans. 120,000, that's right. Redstone on, machine on. Oh yeah, and circuit number 11, I forgot that in 2 of these hatches. Awesome. Well, I'm not sure how long the video is getting by now, but I think that actually took quite a while. I hope you guys don't mind the detailed walkthrough here of the setup for the Volcanus. And hopefully we didn't miss anything here, but yeah, I think we're good here. And we might also just go ahead and request another 4. Like, is that such a crazy thing to do here? We're only missing some lime dye and rose dye. Or rose red. Really? Are we really only missing that? Wow. We might... No, you know what? We're going to be sensible, hold on to our resources for now. And I think what I'm going to do at this point is add some more pyrotheum bees. That's going to be quite the grind here, so I'm going to add some more alvearies to make sure we have enough blazing pyrotheum production. And we are going to save our resources to be able to upgrade ore processing. We still need to upgrade the macerator here. However, we have completed objective number 1. We have crafted and we're tentatively able to sustain 4 Volcanus. During the process of adding more pyrotheum bees, I also switched up some of our bee processing by changing one of the single block fluid solidifiers from extracting honey drops, which is now encoded on demand and is done in our autocraft and LPFs. And that single block is now exclusively doing petroleum propolis, which used to be shared in the machine above. So it's a small optimization, but I still thought I'd mention it here. After a few hours of chilled out bee tinkering, we now have 16 pyrotheum alvearies for faster pyrotheum production to feed our brand new Volcani. Next up, I worked on upgrading circuit production. It's one of our biggest bottlenecks and is something I want to address before we start to craft more expensive machinery. Since we don't have access to the circuit assembly line multi-block just yet, the next best thing is to just increase the amount of circuit assemblers inside of our processing array. At the moment we have 1 IV, but I wanted to aim for 15 more, taking us up to a total of 16 IV machines making circuits at any one time. So after some recipe encoding and waiting a very long time for them to craft, we were able to add them into the processing array. 200 EV circuits? Are you kidding me? 100 IV circuits and 30 LUV circuits? That's going to take forever. I mean, I guess that's the whole reason we're doing this, right? It's going to speed up circuit production, but man, I'm going to be waiting here for ages. We got the 15 nether stars at least. Yeah, it's quite an expensive investment, but hopefully worth it. 800 wafers. We have to sort these out as well. It does also increase the energy draw during operation too, so we had to bump up the energy hatch from a 2 amp IV to a 16 amp energy hatch IV minimum. And in fact, we happen to have one of those 16 amp IV energy hatches spare after we upgraded our multi-block battery a couple of episodes ago. Okay, so right now I just kicked off the craft for the circuit assemblers, but I wanted to show you guys something here. We have run into a bit of an issue with the blast furnace, but check this out. This is so good. 16 hot tungsten ingots at 11 seconds each. Oh my goodness, this is so good. And they're running in batch mode as well, so it's 181 seconds for the recipe, but it's doing 16 at a time, and it's 11 seconds for each tungsten ingot. Because of the overclocks and because of batch mode and because of the Volcanus efficiency, it's just, oh, this is so good. That's so quick for tungsten. I'm just not used to seeing this low of a number. But yeah, there is a bit of an issue here with tungsten. I'm not sure how we want to separate tungsten trioxide, because this can be smelted into tungsten dust or tungsten ingots. And sometimes we need the tungsten dust to then mix into primarily tungsten steel and tungsten carbide. So we do need to be able to make both of them, but I'm not sure how we want to separate them out, because the circuit number 2 recipe is this one here, and I've just disabled it manually, but I mean, yeah, I don't know, unless we separate the subnet here and we have like all the odd circuit numbers on like a different subnet. That might be an option, and we'll just separate this one out, because this is doing the odd things like the tungsten trioxide, and then we have some of the circuit 1 recipes, which are exclusively circuit 1, and some circuit 3 recipes in here as well. Like neodymium dust, for example, this doesn't benefit from any fluids. You can only smelt it with program circuit 1, so this doesn't go through the circuit 11 ones. So I think... yeah, I think I might have just talked myself into this, actually. Yeah, maybe what we'll do is we'll separate this out and give it a separate subnet, and that means we can put the patterns in the specific blast furnace, and we'll just have one dedicated for tungsten dust, and then leave the rest for the regular tungsten ingots and tungsten steel ingots as well. Did we add in tungsten steel here? We didn't add in tungsten steel. Maybe we should also add in tungsten steel ingots. Yeah, tungsten steel I believe is 125 seconds by default, at least with the fluid. With nitrogen, yeah, 125 seconds at IV. Most of the other ones start at HV, but yeah, this is also a very, very long blast furnace recipe. So we'll do tungsten steel in here as well. But yeah, most of the things are still crafting at this point. The circuit assemblers. Still got a while to go, so yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to sort out this blast furnace situation here. And we'll get a brand new subnet over here for the specific circuit numbers in the blast furnace. This allows us to fix the wafers as well. Since wafers are circuit number 3, the small gallium arsenide crystals and phosphorus dust, we can do this on a separated subnet as well, because this also has a recipe conflict, I believe. Yeah, just really quickly here, for the monocrystalline silicon bulls, which is what you cut into wafers, it's also used silicon solar grade in the recipe, and silicon solar grade can be smelted into silicon ingots if it's circuit 11, so by separating it out, we basically need to separate it out for circuit 3 and circuit 11. But because we have pull everything in these blast furnaces here, I have to manually turn these off whenever we want to smelt monocrystalline silicon bulls. So yeah, this is definitely the play here, separating this blast furnace out into a different subnet. A short while later, the circuit assemblers have finally finished crafting. And yeah, I did move the processing array here from the other side. It used to be on the other side of the assembler, but that's just to account for the extra power draw, since because of the energy hatch change, we have to give it a dedicated IV high amp transformer for 16 amps of IV power. So yeah, we have our extra 15 IV circuit assemblers, which are going to go in here to accompany the last one. That'll give us 16. And the first thing we're going to craft with our new circuit assemblers is a scanner. So I encoded the recipe for an IV scanner. I did have to go and get an extra 2 nether stars. I kind of miscounted. So yeah, it's going to cost an IV sensor and emitter, a bunch of circuits here, 11 IV, 4 LUV, and 22 EV. So this will give us a good test here to see how fast this is going to go. There is going to be some other bottlenecks here, like the regular assemblers. But let's just kickstart the craft here and see how fast this is going to be with our new circuit assemblers. Oh, there we go, 11 at a time. I wonder if it was just waiting on input items. I didn't pay attention too much. I think it's still waiting on some EBF recipes. And yeah, the inputs. So maybe it's not going to be a bad idea to multiply some of these recipes here and try to do multiple circuits at once. Oh, yeah, I just went and multiplied all the recipes after the episode. Check this out. Yeah, 1 full stack of microprocessors. Once it gets through the rest of the backlog, and it actually puts it in the circuit assembler, check this out. Any second now we're going to see it show up. But you have to be quick, you have to be paying attention. A full stack in 2.5 seconds. Nice, that's so good. That's so amazing. A few of you guys have asked me why we don't do passive circuits, and passive circuits would be so nice to have, but that's not really a luxury we can afford to... Yeah, it's doing 2 at once now. It's not really a luxury we can afford in GTNH, because passive items relies on infinite input items, or at least a very, very large quantity of input items, and that's not really something that we have right now. At least not for something as complex as the circuit craft, which also uses a bunch of materials used elsewhere as well. So if we tie up a bunch of materials which are in crafted circuits, and it turns out we need the materials for something else, like sooner, then we're kind of screwed at that point. So I think the best strategy in GTNH is just to craft fast machines and try to get like super duper efficient parallel recipes and yeah, processing speed over passive systems. I would say contrary to the most beneficial system in a pack like Nomi Factory, there you want to passive like basically everything. But yeah, here we're kind of limited on what we can passive. It's definitely a different playstyle for sure. You have to manage your input ingredients and manage your resources a lot more, because we're going to be running out of a few things, tantalum being one of those. I was having a look at our next steps in progression, which is going to be the assembly line, and that is what the scanner is going to be for. Actually, is that finished? It is finished. Yeah, and for the assembly line, we're going to need a whole bunch of tantalum, of which we're quickly running out of. This is used in circuit production. and a few other things as well. But yeah, we got our scanner. Is that going to be a quest? Maybe not a quest. I think maybe one of the earlier scanners might have been a quest. But we want the scanner here to be able to start to prepare for the assembly line. So we need a place to plug this in as well. You know what? In the meantime, let me take you back about 40 minutes or so just before the circuit assemblers had finished crafting. And I'm going to find a place to plug this in. As a result of the recent B additions, we're starting to get a bit of a backlog here on combs. It's not a whole lot right now, but we are not processing combs fast enough for the rate that we're now generating them. You can see here we have 3,700 pyrotheum combs sitting unprocessed, and these have to be sent through the multi-block centrifuge here, of which we only have one right now. And it's just, yeah, it's permanently on. It's just not fast enough to keep up with our B production. So we're going to have to just add a new one. We could overclock this, but I think the easiest solution is just to add a new one. I counted out the amps and the power here, and we have 2 amps available on this cable. I think... Actually, where does this go? Oh no, this goes to the genetics lab. Yeah, I wanted the other cable here. There should be another one which powers... Yeah, underneath. We want to pull this one here. Yeah, we're going to have to run it up the side here, which means we'll need to move the muffler hatch to probably the side here. I guess we'll do it on the left side. We can't really place it on top because we need space for the cable. And we need to be able to plug in, first of all, the output bus, which would be nice to connect to that wireless connector. We don't have one crafted. Let's request one. And then we'll do energy hatch on top of that and plug it into this 4x cable. Since we have 4 amps on this line, right, 2 amps are being used by this centrifuge and 2 amps by the new centrifuge. And then the rest we just have to build out here. We'll need a maintenance hatch, we'll need another muffler hatch. I mean, you guys know the drill by now, right? It's just spamming a bunch of machines. How did we do it here? Yeah, maintenance on the bottom. Okay, eventually we got another stocking input bus. I think it was caught in the queue for the circuit assemblers. Those are still crafting. There's 10 left to craft. Right now I just fixed the EBF subnets. The time in this episode is going to be all over the place, but I hope it's easy enough to follow. It's not really relevant for when I'm doing this. I just wanted to make sure to include it in the episode. So yeah, 2 more stocking input buses and we'll copy over all of these combs. So steel, thaumium dust and pyrotheum will go here. And then the one in the middle, I think I'm going to move this one over to the side just for symmetry. But we'll copy this over as well. Let's get a new pin screen. So dripping, silky, honey, CD, petroleum, certus, yellow tinted, oily, energy, salt, mellow, rare earth, energetic, shimmering, and lapitron is all going to go in the new stocking input bus. Nice, I think the output bus should be finished crafting now, and we can place that on the back here. And that should be able to connect, right? Yeah, it says in the tooltip the device is online. That's perfect. Now all we have to do is finish the multi-block and hope that this is going to be enough processing speed for the foreseeable future. Still incomplete? Wait, did I miss the muffler hatch? It's in the wrong place, first of all. And I'm also missing a casing underneath. Yeah, muffler in the middle, casing here. That should form the multi-block. Yes, perfect. Maintenance, batch mode, switch it on, and now we have double the processing speed for the combs. Okay, so back to our scanner here. I think I found a place to plug it in. We have some IV power over here next to the multi-smelter. I don't think it's going to stay here, but eventually we'll move it. Long term, we're not going to use an IV scanner anyways, so there is a specific multi-block, I think, for the same sort of function. So yeah, this is only going to be short term, just to get the first data, or... Wait, what's the correct terminology here? Well, the assembly line is a stupid multi-block. It just doesn't know how to craft stuff, so we have to teach it how to craft stuff, and that is going to be by scanning different items, and we put the scanned items onto data sticks, and then we feed this data to the assembly line to basically teach it the recipe. So we're going to have to teach applied energistics to send the items, and then we also have to teach the assembly line to put those items together into the specific item we want. It sounds a bit complex, but it's really not. It's very simple to understand once we have it built and crafted, but that's a whole other project for next episode. We're just trying to prepare right now by getting these things scanned, because it does take a very long time in the scanner, so I just want to get this prepared ahead of time. So yeah, the assembly line is going to be able to craft all of our parts at IV+, things like the emitter, the sensor, the field generator, the motor, the conveyor modules, the pumps, the pistons, the robot arms, and a whole bunch of other things here. It's also going to give us access to the gravity chest plate. I think that we need a bit of... yeah, it needs to be ZPM first, but regardless, that is all crafted in the assembly line process. Also, advanced stocking buses. The advanced stocking input buses are also crafted this way, which we were previously out of. We did get them from updating the pack, but yeah, we've used them all in various locations, so we'll need those for the ore processing upgrades. Okay, so it's been a while since I've done this, and I'm not sure if it's necessary in Nomi Factory CEU. I know it's not necessary in regular CE Nomi Factory, but maybe any of you CEU players, let me know if this is necessary for the assembly line. But yeah, we're going to have to start to scan a bunch of stuff. I think we'll start with the basics, so the robot arms, the conveyors, the pistons, and the pumps. And it does show us here in NEI that essentially we just have to scan an IV version to get the LUV version. And then we scan the LUV version to get the ZPM version, and so on, all the way through the rest of the tiers in Gregtech. Which means we're going to have to make at least one of each component at IV. This will also test our crafting speed, so yeah, robot arm, conveyor, IV. We might have some of it spare, but I kinda doubt it. And just seeing some of these recipes again, I'm reminded of the fact that... actually, let's do the pump, because that requires a motor. I'm reminded of the fact that we're still missing a few things that we need to automate in this process for making the IV stuff. Namely the advanced glue, which we might look at next episode, since we still are just relying on a backlog of advanced glue, and we're down to 16 buckets. That's kind of concerning. We should have enough though for what we need today. Yeah, and the advanced glue is used to make graphene dust, and graphene takes forever in the assembling machine. It's 160 seconds at EV. So yeah, this is another one of our biggest bottlenecks. We might end up crafting a few more assemblers as well, not just the circuit assemblers. I know there's a lot of information and rambling here as well, but I just want to make sure you guys are up to speed with what's going on, with what we're trying to do here, with our objectives. I heard a chicken, did you guys hear that? What on earth? What is he doing up here? Are you kidding me? There's one in the rafters of our base. What a trooper. He deserves to stay here. What a trooper. Yeah, he's gonna stay here. Yeah, what I was gonna say was, in the meantime, let me show you the changes for the blast furnaces. So I've went ahead, as I mentioned, and separated out the Volcanus and the HSS group of blast furnaces. So underneath, instead of connecting the lime cable to the EV blast furnaces, we now have a wireless connector. And this is now all on red, and that is now connected over here. And I had to change up some of the wiring in here, but we managed to make it all fit and not connect anything that shouldn't be connected together. What am I trying to say here? Yeah, everything is properly separated out with quartz fiber, so the ME controller belongs to the existing network, the lime one, and then we have a no controller for the red net, since it's only 6 channels, I think. 4 for the EBFs, 1 for the pattern, or for the terminal, and 1 for the buffer chest. So it works in exactly the same way, where we send the pattern via our mainnet, which is orange. So the patterns in here for the separated one is meteoric iron, neodymium, chrome, zirconium, tungsten dust, and our phosphorus doped monocrystalline silicon bulls. So all of these have specific circuit numbers that are set here. And we're using regular stocking buses here to control which ones are cooked in each blast furnace. So it's not the fastest way to do it, but it means that we're no longer... yeah, we have 2 just for tungsten dust here. It means that we're no longer tied up and having to switch on and off machines manually when we want to cook bulls. So yeah, it was a pretty simple fix actually. Oh yeah, and I did also rewire underneath the Volcanus as well. It's the same functionality. I was just annoyed at the way the cables looked, but now it's symmetrical. At least apart from this thing, which is now kind of off-center, but yeah, the power cables are now symmetrical. Definitely looks much better this way. Okay, so now the IV robot arms should be finished crafting, and we're going to run this through the scanner as our first scan. So we need to put the... Is it here? Is it here? Oh no, it's here, I guess. The data slot for the data stick. We can also use data... What's the other ones? The data orbs? I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. I think these can hold multiple different recipes inside, but just for simplicity, we're going to use the data sticks. So yeah, we're going to start scanning robot arms. This does consume it, as you can see, so we need to sacrifice the item. So it gets quite expensive at the later tiers, but yeah, even at IV, this is a 450-second recipe, and that pretty much applies for every single component as well. So yeah, the pump I think is finished crafting. It's not finished crafting, but that should be quick now that we have the graphene. Or was it the conveyor module I requested? Yeah, it was the conveyor module. There's the pump as well. We need a spare motor at IV. And that should be all the basic components. I think I'll do the emitter and the sensor between episodes, because those do take another nether star, and I'm going to have to go and get those. So yeah, we're going to output this into a chest. I don't want these going into the AE system, because I'm not sure if it tells you the recipe on the data stick. So I want to be able to keep them organized, and I think we can rename them in an anvil as well. But I don't want data sticks going, at least scanned data sticks going back into our AE system, so we're just going to buffer them here, since we need to manage it next to the assembly line when we have that crafted. And I'm also looking for suggestions on where we should place the assembly line. The assembly lines is something that's going to consume a large amount of power, and we're kind of running out of space next to the battery. The battery is in this tower here, so we want it kind of close, but yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we should use some vertical space. Maybe build out an area underneath here, perhaps. But I'm also open to some other suggestions if you guys have any. However, I think this is where we're going to wrap up the episode. I did also go and move the miner again, or at least one of them. So one of them are currently on Ganymede. So that's just been slowly trickling in resources over this episode, or over part of this episode. But yeah, we made some good progress today. We got our Volcanus crafted, we got some more bees, and we made a start on the assembly line process and fixed some of the EBF recipes. Oh yeah, we did also speed up the circuits, of course, as well. We're now capable of doing 16 at a time, and I think I will multiply all the recipes for the circuits to do many circuits at once. But let's update our objective board here, which is going to be the assembly line. And also the ore processing machines as well. We have to get those. Yeah, this order here is backwards. I want to make sure we upgrade the ore processing machines before we get the assembly line. But that's all going to be for next episode. Fingers crossed. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode of New Horizons.